crude oil is probably the perfect synopsis of the struggle that's happening in the market now, because I know a lot of us are feeling, what's going on? Are these markets tradable? So the first thing is, what's going on? We have a lot of chop, and crude probably shows it the best, meaning back and forth between daily historical volatility ranges. This is typically what crude's able to do, but rather than following through with higher highs or lower lows, heck, I'll take either, we're just stuck in a range going back and forth between these two levels. Crude really embodies the frustration. But the question then becomes, is it tradable? And it is, but it's likely not tradable on a daily time frame. It's tradable on a 1 hour or a 5-minute time frame. You might say, well, Rog, what's the difference? The difference is the levels that we have and the trends that we have intraday, and the risk management is going to be tighter. So if I'm looking to play crude intraday, and I can see price action going from one level to another like this, it's a whole lot easier to see the shifts on a 1 hour time frame. And if I like the way crude is moving in the morning, for example, pre-market or after the bell, it's going to be easier to take advantage of a shorter slice of psychology. And that's the way that I'm going to break this down. All right, so let's take a look at the NASDAQ. Right? I got a lot of questions about the NASDAQ. And in yesterday's video, somebody asked me, hey, Rog, it would be really cool if you could show us what a setup looks like. Now, today is not a great example, but I'll show you a couple setups on the radar and what it is that gets me interested in a symbol. First of all, I think we spent a lot of time on this in the previous video, so that would be a great place to check out the process, which is what we trade is more important than how we trade it. I think a lot of traders, we fixate on the how. We don't ever question, why are we trading the symbol that we're trading? NASDAQ really did not get my attention in the morning. I mean, look at this, right? It's not going anywhere. It's not until in a neutral environment, we had an oversold slow stochastic right in the hourly price movement range, right in that area. Not until that was there even a reason to think that we could do anything with the NAS. All right, well then what followed that? Here is the overbought stochastic right there. Still a neutral environment in the red zone, right? And that's what leads to the next move lower. So that's the setup, gang. Are we in a neutral environment? Are we at the green support or red resistance? And are we seeing confirmation with the slow stochastic? All right, let me show you, though, where in the notes. So when I was setting up trades for today, my preference was really clear. It was in 5 places. This is where my focus was, these 5 places. Now, it's not the 5 things that are so important. It's why those 5 things were important, right? So these are my 5 favorite places today. But it's the criteria, the characteristics of them that was most important. The Dow. So whether you look at the YM or the DIA, take a peek. Below the 200, red grab candles. This is what we're looking at. This is the kind of environment we want. There's a clarity. And frankly, we were even below the Pingala. Now, if you've caught my free videos over the past few weeks, even my premium ones, you know what the Pingala is, right? Even below that Pingala, this red zone right in there. That's indicating there's a higher likelihood of follow through to the downside. That was number 1. Number 2 was XLF and XLV, taking advantage of financial stocks and healthcare stocks. This could be JP Morgan. This could be Johnson & Johnson. Do you see the criteria is the same? You might even say, Rog, far clearer trend structure. Absolutely red. There's no buys to be had in an environment like this. So it's less about the what. Well, I'm sorry, it's less about the how and it's more about the what. What symbol? It's less about the how and more about the what. If I get the what right, if I start off with the what first, the how then becomes really a part of why would this be the priority? Okay? Why would this be the priority? It's in a downtrend. It's below the Pingala. It's below the 200. All the criteria for lower lows are there, right? So Dow, XLF, XLV. All right, I mentioned 5. The Russell was the next one. Do you see the criteria? Okay, Rog, you don't even have to tell me. I'm already starting at the bottom of the chart. 200, Pingala, right, I got it, okay? And then the KRE would be the fifth. Those are the 5 things, but it's less about those 5 symbols, right? Those 5 symbols embodied, and by the way, the KRE wasn't until much later. The KRE had a nice weakness, and it was below the Pingala, which is this red band right there. It did not break the 200 till later, so it was not in any way a layup. But if the Russell's heading lower, there's a pretty good chance the KRE is going to follow suit, right? And the KRE was far from bullish. Look at all the red grab candles. All right, so I kind of started this off with why does this week feel so tough, and how do we handle it? 1 hour, 5-minute time frames. Let's take a look at the S&P. The S&P is, and the same kind of criteria, gang. Start at the bottom of the chart. Take a look at the 200. Here are the daily price movement ranges. So yeah, it's going to make sense, gang, now that we're getting past the XLF, the financials earnings, now that we're past the XLK. Look, the earnings did not save the indices, and I think there was some question mark as to whether or not the S&P could get back above some key levels after earnings in financials and in tech. It's actually the NASDAQ that's the most bullish. This is the most bullish corner of the indices. This is the most bullish. Why? It's actually the only one of the 4 that's still in neutral environment. It's oversold in the stochastic. It's holding that all-important 200, and it's still above the daily price movement range, which is a buyable level. So if there's a place to be bullish in tech. It survived this week. What about the individual sectors within tech? XLK holding its own. Notice, same criteria. Do you see how we're not using brand new indicators necessarily? I'm just looking at the sentiment of a 200. I'm looking at the structure of the market. Here's the oversold stochastic. Here's my daily price movement range. And by the way, the red and green zones that I was showing you on the hourly price movement range are historical volatility zones based on the 1 hour look back of that symbol, 1 hour slices of volatility. On the 1 hour and on the daily, the gold and gray, same idea, but the psychology is the entire session. Historical volatility based on the action for a Friday, for the whole session, not the hour of the day, right? So these are called daily price movement ranges. The red and green are hourly price movement ranges, but they are price movement ranges, which is just an algo. I know it sounds so highfalutin. It's just an algo, which is math, right? It's just math that I created to look at historical volatility-based support and resistance levels well over a decade ago. It's a process I created, and now it's automated with that formula responding to price. So it's a lot easier to see. I used to do this on a spreadsheet, what felt like 1,000 years ago. So that's what we're looking at. If there's a place to look bullish, that's it. But not all the symbols are equally as bullish. Microsoft is far more bullish than Apple, right? Google is actually interesting because much like the NASDAQ, it's testing the 200. It's right there in the daily price movement range. We like Google a lot. Meta is actually quite strong, well above the 200, not an uptrend, but look at its relationship to the 200. It's well above the level, and even though it's very, very choppy, being above the 200 does give it a certain amount of bullishness as opposed to a stock below the 200. What's below the 200? Apple was for a while. It stumbled back down below it. If I'm going to go into an individual stock, Apple won't be one of them. Tesla also struggling, right? These are 2 symbols to avoid, as opposed to Microsoft, Google, Meta, right? What about Amazon? At this point, you should be able to say, oh, Amazon fought the good fight. Earnings helped a lot, didn't it? Earnings for Amazon got Amazon out of the hole, right? So we can look bullishly on Amazon next week. Give it a day or so to settle down, but Amazon recovered nicely. And this is the way I'm going to break down the indices. And this is why the NASDAQ is still my preferred place to look for a buy. I still like crude oil. I believe crude and oil stocks are definitely a place to consider long positions as well. Notice we're going top down, right? We're starting with crude, then going to oil stocks. We're starting with NASDAQ, the sectors, and then getting to tech stocks. Be careful, though, with XLE. It had a rough day. It's got to get back above the 200. And then in the meanwhile, what do? Well, shorten the time frame. That's almost the answer to everything right now. I'm confused. What do I do? Risk is too high. Markets are too choppy, right? Answer, shorten the time frame. All right. That's going to give you the latitude to get long, to get short. And here's a few examples of what I like going into next week, and a couple examples of what we looked at this morning in the Sector Secrets Mastery and in the Futures Room. Hope that helps. And by the way, gang, this third video this week, you go back on the Simpler Trading YouTube channel and you look back at the 2 other videos, you will get a really great synopsis of how to pick symbols. The what you trade is more important than how you trade it. You'll see how I trade earnings. That was Tuesday's video. And then today, wrapping up with some examples of things we're looking at and where the strength still is. These are the places I'm looking for strength. These are the most bullish. I'll see you in the next update. Hey traders, Raghee from Simpler Trading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And remember, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll get notified of the next update. And when you're ready to join me for live trading, be sure to head on over to simplertrading.com. I'll see you in the next update.